guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new Entitled People content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Entitled Renters. My wife and I owned a 2-bedroom, 660-square-foot condo some years ago, and when we moved to a single-family home, we rented it out. One of the applicants was a young enlisted service member and his fiancee. We felt we should give them a chance since they were just starting out. They paid up front, and we have the rental deposit to give them a break. That was a huge mistake. The second month they were there, they were late on the rent as they were on the third month. We finally had to charge them the 10% late fee. Into the fourth month, I got a call from a friend who still lived in the condo. He said 12 people were living in our rental and that they were taking up all of the assigned parking. They showed up from one of the U.S. territories and never left. He also said that they built a cooking pit on the walkway in the common area and were roasting freshly killed chickens and pigs. Mind you, this is a suburb, not a farm. I went down there and told them they could not have all of their relatives living there as they were not on the rental agreement and that they had 2 days to move out. Plus, they had to repair the common area where their fire pit was or else I would get fined. They said that their relatives came over and had no place to stay, so they let them live there. I said that they could stay in a hotel. It was 3 generations, 12 persons plus the couple, living in a 660-square-foot, 2-bedroom condo. In the 5th month, I had to charge them the late fee again and call the service member's commander to get him to pay. Finally, at the end of the 6th month, he got deployment orders, so we let them out of the lease. On the day of the exit walkthrough, I found that the curtains were gone, the carpet was stained with grease and soot from them roasting chickens and pigs in the living room. The dishwasher was inoperable because the drainage tube had 8 oz of rotting fat lodged in there. There was grease and soot all along the walls of every room. They lost the keys, so we had to change the locks. They tried a makeshift repair of one of the toilets using concrete. I confronted them on all of this and said we would be keeping the security deposit, at which they got angry. They thought that, since they lived there for 6 months, they owned the curtains. They were going to challenge us on the rest for their security deposit, but I wrote a detailed letter with photos as documentation to his commander and they backed down. It cost us 3 times the rental deposit to repair all of the damage and to get all of the chicken and pig grease off of the walls. Next one is titled, I hit your car and it's your fault. I was at the mall with one of my friends and we had just finished parking. This lady parked right next to us and for some reason was extremely rude. She rubbed me the wrong way and I didn't know why. Fast forward 2 hours, my friend and I are leaving the mall and we are backing out of our space. There is someone right in front of us, so we can't exactly move. When we are straightened out and in line to leave the lot, the rude lady from earlier backs out as well. She gets straightened out and starts to move forward again. I guess she slammed on the gas because the next thing I knew, she had rear-ended my friend's car. We get out of the car and the lady is screaming at us. She was saying, "Why weren't you moving? You hit my car. You backed into me." She was throwing a full-blown tantrum in the middle of a parking lot. Thankfully, the woman had insurance, but she had the audacity to try to sue my friend for being a negligent driver. Turns out this lady has a bit of a reputation around here, and the judge has seen her multiple times trying to pull this over on other people. Needless to say, my friend won the case. But seriously, some people always thinking they're entitled to behave however they feel like it just because they duck up. Take responsibility for your crap and grow up. Next one is titled, Entitled Mom Won't Let Grandma Move Out. This isn't my story, but my grandma's, 77, story. My grandma's mom was a very entitled mother. At the time, my grandma was in charge of the housework, ironing, sweeping, laundry, even though her mom had plenty of time to do it. Her excuse was she was on her feet all day waiting tables, so my grandma must clean for her. My grandma's oldest sister had been in the same boat until she finally got out with a stable job, to the shock of entitled mom. When my grandma was old enough, her mom expected her to get a job and start paying rent on top of all the cleaning. The summer after graduation, EM went to visit family out of state and expected Grandma to continue her work while she was gone for a week. Grandma's best friend had just had a baby on top of a toddler, so instead of being a maid, Grandma went to her friend's house and helped her for a week. When EM came home, Grandma's brother, the golden child, ratted out that Grandma hadn't done anything for her. This led to an argument where Grandma said she would pay rent, but not do the other chores. This made EM angry, and she demanded Grandma do both. This led Grandma to scream that she wouldn't turn into her older sister, and EM said the magic words, "If you don't want to pay rent, then move out." Well, okay then. A week later, Grandma's older brother came to the house with a trailer attached to his truck and Grandma moved out. Next one is titled, Doctors Shut Down Entitled Mother During an Emergency. I'm posting this for a friend of mine. My buddy is a very good surgeon and has dedicated his life to medicine. He frequently goes to hotspots around the world to offer his services. He spent time in Syria, in Iraq during the war, in Africa, after 9/11 and the Boston bombing. He got in his car and offered his help at hospitals there. He is unmarried, and the only thing he does for himself is he takes 3 or 4 weeks off twice a year, once in July and once in December. He told me he does this so he doesn't lose his mind. On those times he really lets loose. He'll go on vacation somewhere, maybe take up a hobby, go skydiving, scuba diving, meet women, eat wild food. And at Christmas he spends time with his brother's family and apparently gives some pretty nice gifts. He's as good of a person as you could ever hope to meet, and an excellent surgeon. Without giving too much away, before COVID at his hospital, they had a pretty busy day, which at a hospital is never a good thing. He was doing one emergency surgery after another. Everyone was slammed and more people were waiting for emergency care. One person had already died because of the backlog and a few more on the operating table. No matter how good the surgeon is, sometimes you simply can't save people. In the midst of all this chaos, entitled mother walks into the ER and begins demanding that someone see her brat kid who had a bruise on his face because another kid punched him at school, probably for being a brat. The secretary managed to get her to wait in the waiting room, with all the people waiting to see if their loved ones were okay. Her kid went and apparently decided that he was the only one allowed to play with the hospital waiting room toys and would scream at any other kids who tried to approach. Our bureau doctor, meanwhile, is fighting for the life of a 16-year-old who was in a car accident. No idea if it was his fault or not. It didn't matter. And sadly, the kid didn't make it. I always feel this is the worst thing for a surgeon. They try their best, but sometimes it's not good enough. He has to get his own emotions in check before going to face the parents. They have a special room for this in the hospital. It has comfortable furniture and a table that is nailed down. He is in the middle of breaking this awful news to parents who are feeling a pain that words are too cheap to describe, when in bursts Karen. Apparently, she followed the parents as they were escorted to the room. She took a look around and said, "When you are done taking a break my son needs," doctor shoves her out and calls security. He finishes talking to the parents, then goes to the waiting room. Secretary filled him in. He asks the mother, who had been berating the secretary ever since being so rudely treated by the doctor, which child was hers. He went over to the kid and, in the waiting room, gives the kid a quick look over, declares he doesn't have a concussion, and tells the entitled mother to get the duck out of my hospital before I call the police. Entitled mother: "I demand you." Hero doctor: "No, I have patients that need me much more than you. Your kid is fine. You just need to raise him better. Get the duck out." He had security escort her and her kid all the way to her car to ensure that she left. This is a guy who I have never seen get angry. He got robbed in Ibiza, losing his wallet, all his credit cards, ID, and his passport, and shrugged it off, saying he already canceled the card. But an alert out for the ID, and the most the robber got was about $50 and a nice wallet. But when he told me this story, he was shaking with rage. Disclaimer: I was not present when any of this took place. I retold the story as he told it to me with his permission, and at his request have been intentionally vague about certain details like his name, where he works at. Last one is titled, "My entitled mother was afraid of doctors, and I nearly died from a muscle cramp." My mother, the EM of our tale, grew up in a household that didn't believe in doctors or going to the hospital. This translated to an irrational fear of hospitals from IDM. At the time of this story, I was 14 in high school and about to have a very bad day. I should start by saying that my EM lives exactly 1 mile away from the closest emergency room. Also, my siblings and father were out of town for a competition that weekend. I didn't feel like going to another cheerleading competition, so I stayed home. I get home from school on a Friday around 4 p.m. and call EM to tell her that I don't feel good and think I need to see a doctor. EM says that she has a 1-hour workout with her personal trainer, PT, who happens to train the whole family for our sports teams. EM tells me that she will come home right after and take me to the pediatrician. 4:40 p.m. I call EM saying that something is seriously wrong with me and I really think I need to go to the hospital. She tells me that PT just had a cancellation and she is staying for another hour workout, then she will take me to the doctor. 5:10 p.m. I call EM and beg her to come home because I'm in a lot of pain and feel terrible. She gives the phone over to PT who says, "I kid you not, it sounds like a muscle cramp from our workout last week. You'll be fine, buddy." She says she will call our friendly neighbor, FN, across the street to check on me. 10 minutes later, I hear FN walk in through the door and come to my room to check me out. I'm on the floor because I fell after going to the bathroom and couldn't get up. She helps me into bed and immediately calls EM. Convo goes something like this. FN, "Hey I think you need to get here as soon as possible. Your son is white as a sheet and sweating bullets. Also, he is in so much pain he can barely move. Oh, I'm sure he is fine. Probably just overreacting from a muscle cramp like PT says. FN, this isn't just a muscle cramp. He needs to see a doctor. I can put him in my car and meet you at hospital ER that is only 1 mile away. No need for that. I'll finish up here and head home to take him to the doctor." 5:45 p.m. FN calls EM again and EM says she is in changing room, then will be home in 10 minutes. Gym is pretty close. 6:20 p.m. EM finally gets home. FN tells her what I've been going through and says I need to go to the ER. EM says she is taking me to see our pediatrician. EM does take me to see our pediatrician, who also runs a pediatric ER. The problem is that doctor's office is 25 minutes drive away with zero traffic, and we are at the end of rush hour. 7:15-ish p.m. We get to the pediatric ER, and they immediately take me into the back to see what's wrong. Turns out I have an acute appendicitis and it's close to bursting, so they need to send me over to hospital 1 mile from my house to get it removed. The entire time my EM is murmuring about needing to get ready for a trail the next day. She's a divorce lawyer, and how I'll probably be fine and just need to sleep it off. Then there comes a moment when EM is out of the room, but I have a doctor and nurse in the room alone with me. I tell them the whole story about how I've been trying to get her to take me to the ER since 4, how we lived only a mile away from the hospital they wanted to send me, but my EM decided to go here because she hates big hospitals. The doctor didn't really believe me until I told him to MapQuest, old school I know, my address relative to the hospital. I managed to convince them to call for an ambulance to transport me to the hospital to make sure I got there. After my surgery, the nurse told me that my appendix burst as they began the surgery, so they had to be quick. To this day, I still tease PT every time I see him by grabbing my side and saying I think I have a muscle cramp. I've never heard him use those words together since. Thanks for listening.